this aspect of it.
Well, it's fun, and we were talking yesterday about how things changed after the trade deadline last season and how it ultimately led to a bunch of games that meant nothing. Look, it's not the same because obviously, and I guess they did go to a play-in game. It's not the same because obviously you're not playing to get into the playoffs, but these games do mean something just in a different way. And not that we're going to be, checking into all these losses, at least I'm not, and putting it in a negative light, but it does give us an opportunity to pay attention to the draft when last season, throughout this whole process, the Kings didn't have a draft pick. They ended up trading into one, but there was no point in paying attention last season because we didn't have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to see the young players, and they become great players like our next guest. Years ago, he was just a young prospect on these airwaves, Alan, and at the station. And now, of course, he's Mr. Channel 3, Mr. Big Time Sports Guy, Mr. Kings Insider. Sean Cunningham, how are you, Sean?
I'm doing well, guys. Dude, I was traded for like a player to be named later. More like a custodial person to be named later, I think is what they got in the deal. I'd say that was a win for both sides, to be honest. So, how's it going, guys?
Good. Are you you're checking out Radio Row, or you're in San Francisco anyway, right?
Close. I'm in the South Bay.
Okay.
We've got opening night, media night for the Super Bowl, and we're making our way inside the convention center here in San Jose, and it should be a fun, festive night filled with silliness and frivolity, and not a whole lot of X's and O's and breakdowns of coverages or anything like that. It's all about fun tonight.
Yeah, that's right, because, I said San Francisco, but it is true. Some of the media members have to go from San Francisco to San Jose and back for some of this stuff, right, Sean?
They do. And I think they made it a little bit easier for us this year. Like, I remember back in Super Bowl 50, 10 years ago, where it was, it was Panthers and Broncos. You had to pick up your credentials out at Moscone Center in San Francisco. And then the only event that was happening other than the game in the South Bay was opening night, which they had at SAP Center back 10 years ago. So that they've made it a little bit logistically easier on us that you can actually come out to Santa Clara to pick up your forms and your credentials and all that stuff, as opposed to having to go straight into the city. But I think some folks didn't get the memo and they had to do both.
Yeah, Sean, this is always a confusing week, or at least it can be, just based on what the Niners are doing. Niners not in the big dance this season, but of course you're still holding it down because it is out there in the Bay Area. But when it comes to the Kings and trade deadline, obviously a lot going on there. So we'll just kind of get right to it. What did you think about the deal? And the Kings decided to move on from Dennis Schroeder, Keon, and Dario Saric.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've made of it has been a little bit of a to be determined based on maybe what the rest of the trade deadline looks like for the Sacramento Kings. I think on its surface, it's not a bad deal when you understand at least what they're trying to accomplish. But I think objectively speaking, it looks like a colossal mistake based off of previous errors that this current regime, Scott Perry, who has taken over this team, I mean, he had the opportunity to maybe lock up Keon Ellis or even move him for greater value than he just did in this past summer and this offseason when he inherited this mess of a franchise and this roster, and went out and signed a guy like Dennis Schroeder, and then ultimately raved about what he brought to this team and this organization in terms of what he meant for being a veteran presence and point guard. And if you go back and re-listen to some of those quotes, you would have thought that they had just found their new face of their franchise. So I don't know if it's encouraging from a standpoint of weeks later. Ultimately they realized that Dennis Schroeder wasn't going to be that piece that they were ultimately hoping he was going to be. And now you have to attach your sweetener in Keon Ellis, who is, let's face it, he's got his bird rights. He's extension eligible on the 9th, and he's the sweetener in the package for Dennis Schroeder to get off of a really bad contract. So I think there is legit interest in DeAndre Hunter, and we can talk about that a little bit, but it's a tough pill to swallow for Kings fans. I understand it. But I would argue that, them facing the reality of what their roster and what everything looks like on their end, finding from a financial standpoint, realizing they've got some pretty tough, contracts to move when all these teams are trying to shed salaries. I commend them for finally getting a wing. It's unfortunate it didn't happen in the De'Aaron Fox era, but
yep.
they're able to go get a guy that they can pair along Keegan Murray from a scoring and defensive standpoint. That should bode maybe pretty well, and you have some legit curiosities, but it's obviously a big number for next year.
Sean Cunningham, nice enough to join us. So as you well know, Sean, a lot of Kings fans are angrily wondering, why didn't Sacramento get more for Keon Ellis? So what's the simple answer to that, if there is one?
I think the simple answer is don't believe everything you read. There's rumors for reasons. They're not necessarily fact. And I think, yes, it's a fact that Keon Ellis had there were teams that had interest in Keon Ellis. Hey buddy, how you doing? There's teams that had legit interest in Keon Ellis, but that being said, you can have interest in potato chips and a T-bone steak, so there's varying degrees of interest, what you're willing to part with when it comes to getting what you're ultimately after. And I think the reality is he was devalued. I mean, he had much, much, much greater value in the offseason than he did currently here at this trade deadline, where he's staring at free agency and possibility of getting an extension. And I think a lot of teams, while yes, they have interest, and maybe that could be a second-round pick, maybe that could be a late first with a lot of protections. I think the Kings took everything into account and went with the best deal in their mind that they could get. And I think that, you can thank Milwaukee and the Giannis situation for, whatever his future looks like. You can kind of blame that for maybe holding up some other things that may have been in the works. But at the end of the day, I think they are happy with what they have. I think it's just a tough pill to swallow because, you don't get ultimately, he's probably the one that had a lot more value than what you ended up with. But at the end of the day, I think them realizing and getting off of a deal and having to add a sweetener, they're willing to do it and kind of move beyond maybe some of the mistakes they had made.
Sean, I know you were bringing up DeAndre Hunter and what he could mean to this team. I know there have been conversations about, could they still flip him? And the Kuminga thing has kind of been shut down. But, Sean, I've been trying to tell Whitey that this hybrid rebuild is always going to be just simmering underneath. And when we've had you on in the past, you always said, I don't know if this regime has an appetite to tear it all down. Then they brought in Scott Perry, and Scott Perry has said, we got to do this the right way. Sean, how worried should fans be, and people like Whitey Gleason, that this hybrid rebuild with a 28-year-old in DeAndre Hunter might still be a thing if they look kind of good next season?
What do you mean by might still be a thing?
The idea that they're fully going to tear it down.
That they would, instead of tanking, that they'd make a run at the play-in next year.
That's right.
I mean, look, I think the one thing I've bristled at is the fact that 28, people think, that's too old, or, that's something that it just doesn't have value in this league, or it's just too old for a team that's rebuilding. What I would argue is that you have to build your team together. And the unfortunate part is they don't have that radio. I'm on radio. Sorry, brother. Sorry. I'm being pestered by the public.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just
you want to walk in here?
we're coming through here. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Go help yourself.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Yes, to the point of I don't think the 28-year-old player is too old. I think it's something that they have legit interest in. Now, that being said, he's a nice enough player that if you have a legit person or two or three to actually build around, certainly you can see where that would, fall in line with success. It's not an ideal situation because you don't have that number one or two or three player right now. So what I would remind people about when it comes to rebuilding is the fact that this team is going to hit a fiscal cliff in 2027. All of their contracts, with the exception of Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, if he's still on the team, everything hits that cliff naturally and on its own anyway. So I just don't think that they're built right now to be able to hit the reset button so early as they want to. So in the small amount of time that they have, you bring in somebody like DeAndre Hunter, who was only signed for next year, and you can actually make determination on whether or not he can be a player for your future that you can put with other pieces. Now, no one's looking at DeAndre Hunter and saying he's a 1, 2, or 3 guy on a good team or even on this team. I don't think that's what they're trying to determine. But bringing in pieces that he can be a complementary piece too. These are unknown values at this moment in time. So you got 15 players on a roster, and he's one of them. And in 27, if it goes south, he goes south too. He won't be on this team going forward. So I think this is a lot of try to remain competitive, see what you can do. You can drastically reshape the face of your franchise in a very short order time. Whether or not you'll be successful in doing so, we can debate that all day. But again, I think it is true still that the appetite of hitting a full-on reset, rebuilding. I had someone tell me the other day, it's like to call it a rebuild, you don't really call it that way because you're insinuating you've done something. They didn't do anything, guys. So what are you rebuilding? You're going to restructure the face of your roster completely. You'll have some people that carry over, but look at what they've already done in a small amount of time. There's a lot of them that are already gone as it is from that team that finished third in the West just a few years ago. So, they weren't able to acquire draft capital, and they had to attach what will be a pretty low second rounder to make a deal like this work. But I'd also caution people and tell them, just because this is one trade of several that they need and will likely make here in the future. So whether or not that's this week or in the off season remains to be seen. But this is just the first part of what's to come, and we'll see how it works out.
All right, Sean Cunningham, not to put you on the spot, but you mentioned some more moves potentially. Will more moves happen? When will they happen? Who's going out? Who's coming in? And when will all this go down for us? And when will you have the details?
Not to put me on the spot.
No, not at all.
No, I mean, look, I'm expecting another move, maybe two. But look, I was expecting. I think you also have to get your mind around the fact that no moves at all may happen, and this may be exactly what you end up in the season with, is you are playing for ping pong balls at this point. So I do expect another move. I think what's tough right now is you have, again, the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That could really stall things out for a while. I think that becomes a priority for a lot of teams looking to, make a major splash. I think what the Kings have to hope is maybe on a move like that, maybe it's a Memphis with Ja Morant, maybe that they can somehow attach themselves as a third or fourth option, because it's really rare when you see a one-for-one trade these days in the NBA. So we will see how things go. I'm on the radio, so we'll see how that goes. But I mean, look, they're going to do everything they can, and I think that just because they didn't get draft capital in this one doesn't mean they won't get draft capital in other situations.
Sean, those people are very rude. I mean, even if he's not on the radio, he's on the phone. Leave him alone.
No, but that's
he's
a Super
on the
Bowl.
phone.
Jay, no, that's a Super Bowl, man. It's just the vibes. It's just a great time.
Well, it's a lot of fans from all over Northern California, and then I have, because this is media night, I'm seeing a ton of faces that we would see sprinkled throughout California, and it's always like a reunion of sorts when you do something like this. So most of my friends know that not to give me the grace if I'm on the phone, because typically it's just me talking to somebody else. But they don't know I'm talking to you fine people.
Wow, it just sounds like a great time, Sean. Have some fun out there, man.
Disrespectful is what that is.
Oh my goodness, Sean. Just one more for you from my side of things. I was just curious, maybe what you're hearing as far as Zach LaVine. Now I know the $50 million, it's a lot of money to leave on the table, but the conversations of, well, if he told teams that he would opt out, that turns him into an expiring contract. There's been, I guess, an underlying theory about maybe he doesn't want to be in Sacramento or isn't super thrilled to be in Sacramento. Are you hearing anything that you'd be able to share with us?
Your question is, does Zach LaVine want to be in Sacramento?
You asked it, not me, Sean, but yes.
I mean, look, Zach LaVine, whether he wants to be in Sacramento or not, is going to be well compensated. And the fact is, as you mentioned, yes, he has not rang the dinner bell and said, hey, I'm willing to opt out of my $50 whatever million that I'm going to make next year just to get out of Sacramento. So if somebody asked me, does Zach LaVine want out of Sacramento? I'd say no, because he hasn't rang the dinner bell and saying he's willing to turn that down. Yeah. He doesn't want out of Sacramento that much. But yes, I think in a perfect world for both Zach and the Kings, yeah, he wouldn't be here right now. And I think largely beyond Zach LaVine, he's one of, there are, look, there's, if you took, finances off the table, I think the majority of this roster is open to the idea of being outside of Sacramento because this team sucks.
Yeah.
So that's just the reality of things. You've got guys that, feel that they could play bigger roles elsewhere. You have other guys that are chasing legacy, and you have other guys that are just, hoping to wait on opportunities that may or may not still exist in Sacramento. So it's a mixed bag for sure, but I think they share frustrations. A lot of these players share the same frustrations as a lot of these fans who follow this team. I mean, this is not really an organization right now that's looked at as being one of the most pristine and gold representatives of the league when it comes to success and lack of chaos. So, I think a lot of the players on this team, Zach LaVine included, would be very open to the idea of playing elsewhere, but not all of them are strapped with a contract like Zach to be well compensated to play in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm. And Sean, my boy, we'll let you go on this one.
Boy.
Domantas Sabonis in Toronto. Everything that I'm seeing coming out of Toronto leads me to believe, they're talking, but it's still a long shot. Anything, I don't know if you want to predict or anything you can share with us on the talks that we think are going on between Toronto and the Kings on Domantas Sabonis. Where do you think that is?
I think it's cooled a little bit. I think both teams know what which each team is able to offer. I think if in order for something to get done, it's up for both Toronto and Sacramento to find a third or fourth option team to be able to push something over the finish line. The Raptors have several contracts on their teams on their team currently. They're albatross to their roster. It's been pretty well documented what Jakob Poeltl is for a guy who doesn't really play that often and has a really tough contract to move. Emmanuel Quickly, who's a guy I actually like and I think could probably help the team, but it's a pretty tough contract to bring over to Sacramento with what they're trying to accomplish here in the next few years. I mean, let's face it, they're playing for ping pong balls, and the likelihood of finding a playmaker with size in maybe the draft's top 7, 8, 10 picks is going to be plentiful for them. So I don't know that you want to, for the talents that Emmanuel Quickly has, I think he's quite overcompensated, and that could be a tough one to swallow bringing in, especially without draft compensation. But I think it's just incumbent if there's a move to be made there, they have to find other teams. Certainly, there's other teams that Domantas Sabonis can be attractive to, but how do you push something over the finish line? That's a lot of money he's still owed, and all these teams are looking to shed salary in this era of aprons. It's kind of like I've equated it to a pool. When you're trying to kill algae, you have to shock the pool and can't really go in it quite yet. Right now, you're still in that settling point, and I think contracts and players' contracts are coming down. Teams are trying to shed salary, and eventually it'll kind of be warm enough to where you can get in the water and not shock yourself. So I think you're still in that cooling off phase right now for a lot of these teams.
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate it. Enjoy opening night at the Super Bowl. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Sorry for all the distractions.
Not a problem.
No,
You
thank
take
you,
care.
Sean. I'm living vicariously through you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sean.